Hi there, it's Carl Irwin, the Common Magician, and I've got something interesting to show you as usual. Just do a little bit of a demonstration here. What I want you to do is I want you to take a look and just think of a card. You see a card, you've got one in your mind, you're thinking of it, you have it in your head, you're thinking of it. And of course, the possibilities could have been any card. Any card could have been possible out of 52. Deck could have even been shuffled by you. A little bit more on that in a moment. What I want you to do is I want you to think about it, see it in your head, see it in your mind's eye. And again, it could have been anyone. You had a free choice there. But for the first time, go ahead and name the card you were thinking of. And you were thinking of the Ten of Hearts. Now, this is not about the revelation. It's not about what you do with the thought about card. It's about the thought about card and control. So we've lately been talking about free agency and selection, free agency and revelation. So free selection, or at least the image to most people, maybe not to one person, but to most people, that a card was freely thought of or freely named. And in some cases it is. In some cases it can be freely thought of. We've talked about also free agency and revelation, meaning that the spectator has a choice about where it is found. This is more on the side of free choice. This is the category that this little discussion is going to fall into. Last video, I was talking about that universal out. Right, the universal out, whereas if something doesn't work out or something is lost, you lose the break, something goes wrong, right? And they name a card that is not what you have or what you have control over, which can happen. Things don't work out quite right. I can't remember the last time it happened, but it can happen. And with that kind of magic, one way to deal with it is to convert to a named card effect, right? You say, no, that would have been a good trick, but I'm not that great of a magician. Now, you did name a card, though. What was the card you named? The Nine of whatever, and you pull it out, and then you do an effect with that, where you lose it back in the deck, and this time you have a more traditional control over it. So you can do that kind of thing. But in the last video, I talked about using opportunity. What if you have opportunity to see some cards, right? You can get a quick spread and see 5 or 6 cards. That card they named might be in there, and instantly you have an understanding of where it is at, and then you have control. If you know where it is at, you can get control over it just by running cards off or whatever the case may be. So from many different opportunities where you could see a few cards at a time, even by spread and a cut, I've already seen now, about a quarter of the deck, just in doing 2 quick spreads. And in doing that, I can do the kind of poker cheating cull, where I've seen it, I know where it's at, I can get control of it, and without having to go find the card and then do a named card effect, I can actually get back into the game. I want to take that idea and couple it with free agency and selection, free choice. This is not a new idea, but it's one we haven't talked about a lot. I did talk about this once early on in the little series here on free agency, where we were looking at a bank of cards, right? And the way that worked was you show some cards, and as you're showing cards and dropping them to the table around, you get to a person and you say, go ahead and think of a card you see, right? You see a card, think of it. Now I know they're thinking of one of these 3. I don't have to know what they are, but I know what they are. I know where they're at. I drop these down and I just need to control these 3. And then I can do a multi-phase revelation where I'm happening to reveal their card. And if it happens to hit the first time, it's a hit. If it doesn't happen to show the first time, it's not necessarily a revelation anyway. I can move on, right? And you can go back and look that up. But this is a bank of 3 cards. What we're looking at here is a bank of 6 cards, a larger bank. So I don't necessarily know what card they're thinking of, but I know where to get to it. That's the concept. And this can be done on the fly. So obviously the effect as I did it here, this very cheap revelation, which I'll talk about revelations here in a minute. Revelations don't have to be that great, to be honest with you. If you're working off of the concept that they freely thought of a card, any revelation is amazing. It really doesn't matter. As long as it's quick, they name the card and you have it, within a few seconds or a moment. and not really a lot of handling. That's the key. If they really had a freely thought of card and you can bang demonstrate it right away, that's pretty powerful. So that's kind of what we're going for. We just need to know about where to find it at. So we're dealing with a bank of 6 cards. And what I've done is I'm looking at the top 6 cards. Now, this is how you can get into this position. You have a bunch of options available to you. You could have a stack of 6 that you always use, right? You could have 6 cards that you just always use for this, and you can have them set on the top. And you know them well, you know the order, you know exactly intimately what they are. It could be the first 6 cards of a memorized deck that you use. And they really could come from anywhere. It could be the bottom 6. We'll talk about presentations here in a moment, how to show them. But 6 cards that you know, 3 and 3, 6 cards that you know. If you want to do it on the fly, you can take a shuffled deck, a deck shuffled by the spectator, take it back and spread. Now, what you are looking for is 6 cards on the top that are all different values. All different values. So here I have a situation where I've got 4 queen, king, 6, 7, queen. I've got 2 queens here. I'm pretty close, but I've got 2 queens. So what I can do is take the queen, the last one, and just drop it to the bottom. And now I've got a 9. So I've got queen, 4 queen, king, 4 QK, 6, 7, 9. 4 QK, 6, 7, 9. That's all I need to know. I don't even need to remember the suits. I just need to remember those. 4 queen, king, 4 QK, 6, 7, 9. Now I'm ready to go. When I take the cards back, I get my quick glimpse. I'll talk about formulating another stack here in a minute, because you could just formulate a stack on the fly and using an alternative method. But I'm taking the opportunity. If I have a bunch of doubles in there, I can just cut the deck and try again. And if I'm seeing a lot of it, I overhand shuffle. They already shuffled. It doesn't matter if I overhand shuffle, and then take another spread. You want to get to a point though where you can get your 6 cards pretty quickly and efficiently. You don't want to have to finagle too much. So if you have a couple of doubles in there, just take the doubles out, move them. And you can always, I need to remind you of this because we looked at the overhand top stock retention shuffle, the jog shuffle, and we'll look at another jog shuffle here in a minute. You can always nullify any monkey business with a jog shuffle, right? If you've done this sort of thing, you can always go back to this and end up clean again. You just shuffled the cards again. I still have my stack though, right? I still have my cards in order, 4 QK, 6, 7, 9, still there. But I've nullified what I've done. It's the gambling premise. I collect cards off the table and I shuffle the cards. Now I'm clean. I've nullified everything that was there. I don't know where anything's at. And just to be sure, go ahead and cut the cards, right? We're doing everything but the cut. I've nullified anything I've done, and I'm clear. Okay, so just in common banter, deck's been shuffled, it's in use, whatever the case is. I know my top stack. Okay, so 4 QK, 6, 7, 9. Now what I want to do is I'm going to spread only these 6 cards, but apparently spreading the deck. Now it looks like, and this is something you don't show to everybody, you show it to a person in a group. So you close proximity to that person so that you can put the cards up and they can see it. Now here's what I'm looking at from the back. I'm spreading 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I've got 3 and 3, and then my index finger is sitting over top of all of the indices in the deck up until that last card in my stack. So from the front view, you see this. You see 6 available cards and nothing else. You can't make out any other card in the spread, just these 6. Okay, so you say, go ahead and take a look, think of anyone you see. As I bring the cards back, I close and I take the top 3 and I gesture. You see it in your head, and then I drop these on the bottom. Now I know that I've got 4 QK here, right? Which is now moved to the bottom, 4 QK, 6, 7, 9 on the top. 6, 7, 9. King, queen, 4. Okay, 4 QK goes to the bottom, 6, 7, 9 is on top. I'm just splitting these. Now I'm home free for a revelation no matter what they state. They can state what the name, the identity of their card, and because I only have 6 values, six separate values, I don't even need to remember the suits. Whatever king they name is going to be the king that I have, right? So that is it. And one thing we can do now, though, is to muddle up the picture a little bit more. We've seen that there's a little bit of suspicion on the top of the stack if they're paying close attention. Immediately after I drop that to the bottom, I'm going to do a jog shuffle, but this time I'm going to retain the top and the bottom. Erdnase. Okay. I start by leaving the top stock. I do an in jog. I shuffle fairly on top until I get to the last small group, which will have my 3 cards plus a margin, and I out jog. In jog, above my top cards, shuffle fair, out jog the bottom stock. I now pick up by pushing with my fingers on the bottom stock, and with my thumb I push up on the in jogged card, and now I leave behind the bottom stock, and I'm left in the same place I was before for my top stock retention with a big break. I shuffle off to the break, and then I drop my top stock back on top. As far as a poker game is concerned, I am clean. Even if I knew where cards were, I just shuffled the deck. So think about this. I've come off of demonstrating cards. They're thinking of one. I gesture and set 3, the top 3 on the bottom. I know that they're there. I do the in-out jog shuffle, and now I've nullified any suspicion. That's where I should be at, and this should be fluid. One thing after the next after the next. You go right through each one. But now I'm ready for a revelation. They say whatever card it is. Now, there's a few different ways to deal with this. If they happen to name the bottom card, or if they name the top card, either the 6 or the king, 6, they say 6 of spades, I'm ready, like in the example, for a revelation. I can do whatever revelation I want. I could top palm this off and put it in my pocket or whatever. You know, I can card to impossible location, card to wallet, card to whatever. Same thing for the bottom. I could cop it out and do the same kind of thing. I could do a what I call the poor man's dribble catch. If they name that king, right, I can dribble the cards and grab the, whoops, I flubbed it up. But I can dribble the cards, and I lost my card. I'm not sure if this was the king we had, but it's the one I've got. So 6, 7, 9, king, queen, 4. So king of diamonds that we have. If they name that king, I can dribble the cards, and I can do poor man's, dribble catch. If I do it immediately after they name the card, this is a perfectly adequate way to do a dribble catch because they don't know what you're going to do. They don't see it coming. If they name the next card, what I did for the example there was I just dribbled the card, slapped it down, and then I pulled it off the top, right? You could do something like that. You could say it's somewhere in the middle. We're going to bring it up to the top, right? I'm going to pull it up to the top and then show it. Some kind of flashy maneuver that happens quickly after the card is named and then the revelation. You have to remember, this isn't a lost card. This is a thought of card. They've only been thinking of it, and they had a free choice. Not only do they more so think that they had a free choice than if I only showed them one card to think of from a shuffle deck. They kind of think they had a free choice of any card because they saw an array. They have a selective memory. They only remember the one they saw. They don't remember how many were there, and they don't remember the other cards, right? So that's revealing the top or the bottom. If they name an interior card, I can very easily do the it's not on the top, it's not on the bottom gag, right? If it's the second card from the top, I can say, and you can see it's not on the bottom, right? You can see it's not on the top, right? It's somewhere in the middle. And then I can throw this card into the center. And then I can reveal from the top using any revelation I want. Same kind of thing. I can say it's not on the top, right? And it's not on the bottom, right? It's somewhere in the middle. And I peeled off the bottom card, and I can just slide this into the middle or drop it on top or whatever. And then do my revelation from the bottom card, dribble catch, poor man's dribble catch, something else like that, any other kind of thing. You can equivocate down to that card. The possibilities are endless because it was a thought of card that has now just been named. I just need to get to a revelation efficiently and quickly. Okay. I need to get there quickly. Equivoque may not be the best way because it does kind of drag out a process. I think you want to be fast once it is named, right? So those are the options. If it's the third one down or the third one up, it's just a matter of showing 2 cards on the top, not on the bottom. It's not on the top, right? It's somewhere in the middle, somewhere in the middle. I'm going to draw it out of the middle and bring it up to the top. And that brings us to your card. So you have alternatives, right? You can always ditch off or clean off the cards that are in the way. I recommend doing this not on the top, not on the bottom thing, rather than running cards. Okay, because once they name the card, you kind of want to have things somewhat stationary, I think. I don't think you want to do a lot of muddling around once they name what it is. Because you don't want to have that, it's a marked deck kind of accusation coming out, right? Where you're finding it without looking because you know what they are and where they're at. I think you want to have a stationary situation. This is pretty stationary, right? I think just to do something like that. You're not really handling the deck. You're not spreading it. You're not looking for it. A bank. Using opportunity in a bank of cards, 6 cards, which is enough for a handful spread, and then revealing from there. This is not a new idea. I can't even pin down where this would originate from. A lot of different effects operate on banks of cards and working with options from a bank. A little bit about that, though. Let's talk a little bit more deeply about your bank. Some other alternatives is to increase your probabilities. This is again taking some risk, but this is not really any risk at all. It's just using probability to your advantage. I have here, we'll take some cards out. Let's say we take these. So I've got a face card or a picture card. I've got some number cards. So I've got 6 cards, but I've got a picture card among some number cards, but I've got 2 picture cards actually, which is nice. 2 different picture cards among some other number cards, but you'll notice if you pay attention to the coloring, right? What do I have? I have 1 red card. I have 1 red card, the 4 of diamonds. This is a bit of a risk and opportunity. They are more likely, if given a short amount of time to look, to gravitate towards that one. David Berglos talks a lot about in his Think-A-Card, that when you spread the deck, he does Think-A-Card from a full spread. He would have, a full fan, and he'll say, go ahead and take a look. And you track the eyes and whatever. And what you'll do is you'll take a look and you'll just see based on where their eyes track to. It's crazy stuff, right? I've never seen anybody else really do this. But you take a look at where they track and then you look at the deck and you just take note. Is there anything that stands out? And if there is where they seem to have tracked, you cut there. Talk about risk, okay? We're taking that kind of concept, but we're putting it into a more controlled environment. There's a high probability that they'll hit that. No, they may not, and they have the option not to. But now I've got this card is going to go to the bottom when I cut. So I can do revelations from the bottom, and I have a pretty good opportunity that I'm going to hit that 4. If I don't hit the 4, it's okay, because I already have alternatives to work with anything else. It's only a bank of 6. Okay, so you can think about this and kind of experiment visually, lay some cards out and think, for you, what do your eyes really gravitate toward? What kind of combination of cards works for you? And use that as your bank. Use that all the time. Other options for banks. You could take cards and you can make a bank rather than having to fumble around and deal with chance. You can make a bank from a cull, right? I could take the cards and I could cull in a high probability situation where I just take the first 3 black cards that I see, I call them out, and then I take a red card, and then I go to the next 3 black cards that don't match, right? And then I call them. So now I have a bank at the top where I've got a sorry, it should have been 2 more black cards, where I've got 3 black cards, a red card, and 2 black cards, and here's my bank. And I can even account for these as I'm calling them. I just say them in my mind in the order that I see them. So I can create a bank just from a call. It automatically goes to the top. And once I've done that from a spread, I can now do my top stock retention shuffle and keep that there. So now I've got Q6752J, right? Q6752J, and I know the 5 is red. So I know that that's my likely one, which will be the top card when I cut. A lot of opportunity there. Depends on how slippery your memory is and how that works. For me, it's better, if I'm going to use something like this, it's better for me to have a bank that I know really well. So like the first 6 cards from my personal stack that I use, or some kind of just easy to remember sequence of cards in my first 6. That's more how I would operate. But anyway, using a bank, using opportunity, but reversing the concept of opportunity. It's not your opportunity of seeing their card. It is their opportunity of seeing a card that you want them to see, right? It's only a few cards they're looking at. So therefore, you have a high probability. And then covering up all indices except for the ones you want them to see. So you can also do this from the bottom. I played with that, and it might have a more aesthetic visual appeal to it, because if you're spreading from the bottom, you don't necessarily see a big chunk of cards. There's not this discrepancy of a deck sitting out in front. You could even do it from the middle if you want to find a way to do that kind of a handling. But I think you want to have 3 and 3, and then have coverage on indices using index fingers. So from the bottom, it would look probably something more like this. You have 3, 3, and then I've got index finger coverage over here. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you can't see the index of this card. So you have the ace, the 5, ace. It's not perfect for what we're talking about because you have duplicates, but this is how you would hold. And this looks a little bit more like an open spread, more from the center. So this is a possibility as well, if you can get into this kind of situation. Also, because my hand is covering down here, my bank is even smaller. I have more like 4 cards I'm looking at. So you can play around with that concept too. You might even have only, if I tuck this one in, you might have only 3 cards that you have if you cover the indices over here. So you can say, go ahead, take a look, think of a card you see. There's only 3 cards they can see. That's all they get, right? I've decreased my bank a whole lot more from what looks like an open spread, and I have an opportunity to work from that. So play around with this concept, a bank of choice, that you know where things are at and you roughly know the order based on value, and you can always control those cards because you know where they're at. Anyway, a few ideas for you to take and run with and improve and put into your own magic. So good luck with that. Happy magicking.